What's up, guys? It's Chris. Welcome to VHP Engines. So I'm having to refilm this one because I got off on a fucking tangent. Now, unfortunately, this isn't really like a long topic, a long subject here, but I'm gonna throw it out real quick because I don't want to say that I've never given aftermarket sleeves their fair shake. I've talked about so much shit engine wise, I've never really focused on that. So I guess I'll give it a couple of minutes to talk on it and say exactly when I think that it's the most beneficial to use aftermarket sleeves instead of just stock sleeves or CSS, right? Now, my argument for CSS has always been like, that CSS can hold like 1,000 horsepower. They've been done like so many times. So why would I go with aftermarket sleeves? Well, here's a good case in point, right? Every individual sleeve when you're re-sleeving a block with aftermarket like Darton or LA or whatnot, those sleeves are all individual. They slide into place, right? So let's say if you live on the track, and you have a engine block that has a higher risk of throwing a rod, the good thing about having replaceable sleeves that are individually replaceable is that if you throw a rod and you destroy the bottom of the liner or whatnot, you can literally just slide that one out and put a new one in. So instead of replacing an entire block, you're replacing that sleeve. Now, I still haven't seen exactly how much, I've seen secondhand sales for sleeve blocks, but I've never really seen how much the process goes into paying for sleeving an engine. I don't know how much it is. I do know that cylinder support system, if you're going for the high horsepower application, it does get pretty expensive. Like, once you consider bore and hone and all that shit, it's up there in price. I would imagine that the same could be said for the sleeves, because I'm pretty sure they come at a certain set, and then you have to make your adjustments in the machine shop to fit whatever fucking pistons you're putting in. So it could be the same processing. If you have your own block and you're sending it in for the CSS work and all that stuff, it can still run you around at like $1,000 pretty easily if you're gonna bore and hone. Like, if you're gonna bore and hone and do all the machine process the way you are, I think that's like $350 for that. And then there's the price of the CSS itself, and then shipping or whatnot. But yeah, so again, you got to remember, guys, that if you're building an engine, there's no such thing as really bulletproof. Anything can fail, right? It doesn't matter how good the parts are. It doesn't matter how well built the engine is. Things can happen. And if you live if the car's life is going to be under stressful situations, and the chances are that it can happen, then it probably eventually will happen. So the thing versus so if you're going to spend like $1,500, or if you're going to go $1,000 deep in like a CSS block, and if you throw a rod that shatters one of the bottom ends of one of those cylinders, that engine is done for, as opposed to like replacing the liner. So again, I'll always be using CSS, and I think the majority of you guys watching here, if you really want to upgrade your cylinders, that's the way you're going to be going to, because I don't think that most of you guys on here are building high horsepower race cars. And there ain't nothing wrong with that. There's okay building a 7,800 horsepower car that you're going to drive on the street, because that's completely fucking doable if your car's done right. So yeah, for those guys, I don't really see the advantage of going with the sleeves. And yes, I understand, like I just said, that any engine can blow at any given time or any given circumstance, but and that does go for the street as well as the track. But the chances are, if something happening in the street, it's going to be a less stressful situation on what happens on the track. And the same thing, like I said, that pushing a single cam past its limits, right? So if you run a 220 horsepower on a single cam that's stock, on a turbo setup, and it spins a rod, the chances are you're just going to stretch the bolts, and it's just going to spin the bearing, and you're just going to get a knock. And the engine overall is salvageable, the block itself. Now, if you push way beyond its power limits of what it can handle healthily, and you're up to like 300, then when you fail at that high level, it's catastrophic. You don't just lose the bearing and have a knock, you lose the entire rod, and it comes out the fucking block. That's consistent. I've seen that so many fucking times. And that when you push well beyond what it can handle, it's a catastrophic failure. So better to have a less likely situation that is going to explode everything versus a higher likely. So if you don't plan on living your car 100% on the track, and you're building a purpose-built race car, then CSS is always still the way that I would choose to go. CSS or stock sleeves. And if you're building the race car that you're never going to take off a trailer, you're never going to take off the track, then by all means, if you want to spend the big money, then grab yourself some aftermarket sleeves. Hope that clears a little bit of shit up with that. Thanks for watching. Social media links are in the description down below, and peace.